We are honored to invite Scott, Gitcoin co-founder, to join this interview. And Scott, please say hi to our reader, Block Temple.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hi.
Scott Moore, Gitcoin.
And I want to talk about the priority. Yeah, today is priority summit, and in priority we have talked about various voting methods, and including quadratic funding, and we discussed the past and future voting methods. Future voting methods like adapting reputation and predictive voting. We all know like quadratic funding has been really successful in Gitcoin. Yeah. So Scott, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on the other potential future voting methods, and how do you imagine they might work?
So I think voting is only one last sort of resort mechanism for finding information about what a group believes about some opinion or some context. If you're trying to create basically some kind of map of a space, what you need to understand is who is part of that space and what do they believe and how strongly do they believe those things. And if you do that, you get a sense of different kinds of community opinions. You can use that to decide things like funding. And that's fundamentally what quadratic funding was aimed at doing. So to me, the most interesting thing to try and do now is figure out what are things even beyond voting in terms of broader consensus finding that we can do. And I think Ethereum even is an example of a consensus system.
Yes.
It's a coordination system in some sense. And I think if we can create more types of continuous information sort of like gathering tools like Polis, like sort of the work that the Taiwanese government has been doing, then I think we can start to do more of these experiments in local communities, in not just blockchain communities.
Yes.
So I think that's what I'm really excited about right now, is just seeing more sort of continuous consensus information finding in these sort of other local communities. But certainly quadratic funding and quadratic voting are like, I think, a part of that puzzle, because they tell you the actual intensity of preference that someone has for a given opinion or a given sort of piece of policy, for example. So I'd love to see maybe more of that research done, but I'd especially just love to see more of these consensus finding tools being built.
Yeah, as you say, like the new voting method is not limited to blockchain, also like Taiwan or any country or local group. Yeah. And the next question, I want to talk about the Gitcoin, focus on Gitcoin. What roles has Gitcoin played in promoting the development of Web3 and decentralized technology? And in the next 5 years, what specific goals and vision do you hope Gitcoin?
I think my hope is, I think anything to do with decentralized organizations right now is hard. It takes a lot of time to build up community. It takes a lot of time to get people sort of buy-in. I personally have actually been like much more involved in sort of like generally helping as a steward for many DAOs, including Gitcoin. So I've been sort of a steward for ENS, a steward for Optimism, a steward for ZK Sync. And in all those contexts, I think I haven't seen one example where I think we've perfected online governance, but I have seen a lot of cool experiments that I think will continue sort of into the next 5 years, 10 years. Yeah. So to me, what I would love to see is, more of these sorts of, fast consensus, local consensus mechanisms, even in large online organizations like those kinds of DAOs, to sort of streamline or speed run processes that right now can tend to get bike jet or a little bit kind of ossified in different places. And I'd also love to see just generally people start to work on building out new protocols that use quadratic funding, that use quadratic voting, and extending the existing toolkit. So I think from my perspective, Gitcoin can be a facilitator of those things, of those kinds of organizations. And it's kind of been part of that in terms of things like Public Works, which is more for funding protocols in Web3, something that I've been sort of spinning up on my side. Things like Kernel, which are more sort of educational initiatives. I think it can become a hub for these sorts of spin-outs to happen that will be, in the long run, able to sort of build their own communities and be sort of part of this network, this pluralistic network of projects that are sort of aimed at the same mission of public goods funding and democratic technology.
Yeah, I think Gitcoin is a good example, not only for the voting, but also for like education, to educate people how to think the future democracy. Yeah. And I personally believe that discussing digital democracy and government in Taiwan is meaningful. So, Scott, after this morning's priority summit and your panel, do you have any takeaway you like to share, Taiwan reader, Asia reader? Yes.
I mean, maybe my takeaway is just that I'm blown away by how active the community is in Taiwan and just how much progress there is and concern there is for democracy. I think that's really heartening to see, especially in the context of a lot of the Web3 community sometimes being very insular and very focused on its own sort of like tooling and its own things. I'd love to see just more of those types of integrations between just like the real world, real life communities, and the sort of more abstract stuff that we do in Web3 often. And I think Taiwan's been a really great sort of space in terms of exploring those types of intersections.
Nice, thank you. Thanks, Scott, again for joining this interview and Asia Block Summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much.